Everyone, welcome to another episode of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Billman. What's going on, man?
Not much, dude. Welcome back.
Thank
Happy
you.
happy to be here with you. Getting excited for the Super Bowl. Excited for the DU5 draft soon thereafter, the weekend after. A lot going on. But most excited for tonight, the prospect profiles. We're getting into them. We're going to talk about some running backs, just a couple of them. We'll probably ramp up to more than just two at a time as we go on, but just starting slow here. We'll pick up the pace, but excited about it.
Cool. You're excited about the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always excited about good football. I mean, I would prefer different teams,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, I think it'll be a good one. I think the Eagles are a little stronger than last time, so it should be a pretty interesting matchup.
All right. Let's talk a little bit of news nonsense. So yeah, we had a Ben Sinnott sighting in that game. Are you
Come
still
on, I got
interested?
to pull some gems out, right?
I know you're like it could happen. It could happen. Yeah. I mean, we saw him on like what one of the last plays of the game or something. It's
It was a fake punt. It was a
yeah.
pretty crucial play, I feel like, and
Yeah.
trusting the third tight end technically on the roster. I don't know, it says a little something.
I think for his price, like I'd still try to buy in. I think I saw reports today that like Zach Ertz wants to come back, but I don't know how many fully healthy seasons he has left. So there's still, Ben Sinnott has a heartbeat.
He'll never die, Zach Ertz. He will
Yeah.
never he'll never let the youngin take the job easily. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think that play showed a little bit of his skill set. Going up and getting the ball, and hopefully he can develop over the next year. I'm still interested, and I think we've talked about it at the price. It's definitely worth a shot. But it was good seeing him do something because he's literally done nothing up until that point. And in one of the bigger moments on the biggest stage of the year for that team. He showed up, so I liked it.
It kind of reminds me of what was it, the last playoff game, or maybe it wasn't Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney were featured on critical plays.
I don't want that to be what this reminds you of. Come on,
Just gonna yuck your yum.
Yuck my yum heavily. Oh my goodness,
Yes.
dude. Okay,
It happened. And then Will
depressing.
Shipley.
Yeah.
Will Shipley was had a sighting. I didn't see him, but
And
yeah.
can't see me, blinders on.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a big run at the end of the game. He had like a 50-something yard run, almost scored a touchdown on that one. I think he later punched it in. This was all after they kind of put the game away. But a playoff game, everybody's still competing. They're not taking starters out or anything. So he did something. And yeah, for me, this would just be a time to try to move him. If we I was kind of trying to package him with Hunter Henry. I actually didn't even check back on that trade. I was trying to package him with Hunter Henry for like a second next year. Like if you can get like a mid-second, early second with those two, try something. Off the hype. Like this is kind of what we talked about. Some of these guys, show what they can do in the playoffs and get the community, behind them a little bit. And so I think this might be, one of those examples where you could package him and maybe get a nice little pick back in the second round range.
All right.
I think you'd have to package him with something, like I said, Hunter Henry, which is like an actual usable piece to get the juices flowing. So it would need to be something like
for
that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Check yourself. Got a quick PSA from Billy here.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this. We've talked about it before, I think, in the past, but I was going through a couple negotiations and I was using my resources wisely, and I wanted to make sure that anybody who listens to us does the same. And so regardless of how good a deal may look, you should always have someone you can rely on to discuss each deal, like a Discord or single person or both, which we have an offer, which is great, but it's too easy to have bias and blinders on and too much risk involved not to engage in the due diligence. I just feel like even if you think the deal is a smash, most of the time deals aren't falling apart within, minutes, an hour. Usually deals will sit there and you're not like worrying it's not going to get done. And you can have conversations with people, you don't need to rush these things. You can talk to somebody. And I had a deal that was pretty much like a smash any way you look at it. And I still was like going to the Discord, going to, just different people like, hey, am I thinking about this right? And it's like, okay, you're doing the right thing. And so I I feel like that is a practice that might not, happen that often. And it's just a really critical little thing that you can do to help yourself not make mistakes, because it's really easy, as we've seen, each of us on here have made mistakes. And I'm sure as you've all seen, in your own experience, the same thing. So just something I wanted to put out there.
Yeah, it's important. You're not alone. If you're listening to this podcast, we have the Discord, so I don't do it enough. And sometimes that bites me in the butt, but yeah, it's definitely important to reach out to somebody else. All right, trade games. Do you play partners against each other? What is the proper way to do this if you do it? Respect your limits. What's the wrong way, etc. What do you got going on here, bud?
Yeah, I mean, we popped this into the Discord, or somebody actually, I think it was Lapisaurus who really got this conversation going in the Discord about a specific deal that, it's basically saying, like, would you play trade partners against each other? If you have two or more people obviously going after the same asset, are you going to play them against each other, or how are you going to do that? I forgot the comments here real quick. Mom and Mrs. Her boys kill it tonight. Thanks, Jake. We have Iston in here. I think this is Frank Bros in the Discord. Looking forward to this. And Josh, good old Josh, like, oh, appreciate y'all being here. So yeah, with the trade partners playing against each other, I mean, it's an interesting conversation. This doesn't often, I don't think this really often happens. Like, you have to have specific situations where somebody's going after the same asset. Maybe you put Jamar Chase on the block, and now you have 2 or 3 people, on your jock about this guy. And so, would you be comfortable, Uriah, if one of the trade partners sends you, their a high first round pick plus, a really solid player, XYZ, and the other trade partner also has a very high pick? Are you going to go to the other manager and say, hey, this is what this other manager offered me, what can you do? Or how are you going to approach that situation?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I would probably just work with the guy who has the higher pick or the player that I want, and just kind of deal with that. Because here's the thing. If I sent an offer to somebody and somebody else was like, oh, hey, so-and-so sent me this, I would just think he's full of shit. Like, I wouldn't even believe him.
I've had that.
I would be thinking he's lying. So I don't want to be that guy. Like, well, you know what? I mean, that's a really good offer, but I'm getting such and such from this guy. Like, maybe it does work, but that's just not how my brain works. So I wouldn't do it. Yeah. What I have done though, is, so it's kind of relatable. Like, I gave up the 101, I think, to Josh in one of the leagues, and somebody hadn't realized that, thought I still had the 101. And I was like, well, shoot, I know that Jake was trying to move to 102 because the guy I just completed a deal with wanted the 102, was talking to Jake too. And so I told him, like, hey, you know what's really good though? During your negotiations with Jake, let him know that I already set the price for the 101. He's going to love that.
That's diabolical. Oh my god.
I hope that came back to Jake.
He's going to lose his mind. That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. No, yeah, that's a good one. That's a great one. Well done, Uriah. Yeah. So, I mean, I've had that happen to me, exactly what you're saying, where somebody said, like, oh, well, I got this guy who's, going to pay this for him. And I'm like, all right, let's see it. Like, that's literally how I approach it. I'm like, all right, let's see it happen. Like, this is what I can do. And actually, I think that specific one I'm thinking of, we ended up getting a deal done in the end. And so he was kind of BSing, but I guess that's kind of the game you play. I do think you can get into, like, upsetting your league mates or your trade partners, your potential trade partners, right? By doing that kind of thing. Like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't feel great about having a conversation that felt like in confidence about a trade, and that exact trade I'm talking about going to another manager. And so I don't think I would necessarily feel comfortable spitting the exact trade to another manager. I think I would feel comfortable saying, listen, like, I got another really good offer on the table. I think I'm going to take that. Is there anything else you'd be willing to offer on top of what you've already sent, kind of thing? You know what I mean? And then compare those different offers. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think
there's some sort of, like, sorry.
No, go. You're fine. Yeah.
I think there's some sort of like intimacy if you're actually having these trade conversations where you feel like what I'm telling you here, like this is between me and you. So for like somebody to be like, well, you know what, like this guy's gonna like. So did you tell the other person what I'm sending you? So then it feels like there's some trust, like kind of being
lost there. Yeah.
But, I mean, it's all part of the game. It's not illegal or anything, but
No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. I think that there is like we're talking about, there's kind of a right and wrong way to go about it, right? Like there's maybe the better way to say it is like there's a more ethical path to take than the one where you're just kind of divulging private conversations to other people and then pissing people off. And then now when you go to make a trade, maybe that's more innocent and you really need to get it done or want to get it done. Trade partner's not so into it anymore into working with you, you know? And so those are the things I think we really want to avoid happening. And this is just one way you can avoid that. I think, you know, like there's obviously a limit to this thing. I also think, I mean, this is a good point. Jake put this down, like continuous pestering, playing same game over and over. Like if that's your go-to method, your go-to strategy, like it's going to get old real quick. You know, people are going to catch on and they're just not going to play that game over and over. It's one thing that if you have, like I said, a Jamar Chase, a hot commodity, it makes a lot of sense. If you're talking about, you know, J.K. Dobbins, that he has a lot of, you know,
everybody wants them. I got 4 or 5
yeah, like, probably not, you know. It's like, so I don't know, play your cards right. Just again, I think respect other people's time, know the limits, and just kind of, you know, play the room, read the room rather.
Excellent. All right, so let's hop into this time of year. It's probably why people will still be tuning in for prospect profiles.
Yes.
So you grabbed 2 very good ones. I mean, we're going to do 2 running backs in this segment. We're going to do Kaleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton. Both these guys, just from spreadsheet point of view, and then also with my eyes, like these guys, everybody knows Ashton GD is RB1, right? I mean, you could argue for, I think, honestly, 1 year from now, I would not be surprised if either of these guys actually outplayed Ashton GD. Like, I believe
that's interesting.
I believe these are probably RB2 and 3 in the class.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think they might end up being around that. They're pretty
close.
They're pretty. Yeah. Pretty close. I mean, I'm obviously picking. We're going to be picking profiles and talking about players and couples and groupings that are definitely close to each other. Whether it's, you know, community like rank feeling, whatever, the draft kind of board feeling. We're gonna hover around those kind of things. So that I think it makes sense to talk about these 2 guys. They've been getting a lot of buzz, especially I feel like Kaleb Johnson's been getting quite a bit of buzz. They're higher graded for sure within this class, up at the top tier for me in terms of the film gradings. And I think even just when you look at, you know, the numbers on the spreadsheet in terms of, you know, the data we put together, which there's, you know, 5 or so different data points, advanced metrics we're looking at. There's some other stuff too, but they're very, very similar when you look at them side by side, right? There's a couple differences, but very minor. And I was surprised to see that Kaleb Johnson looked like on the sheets a bit more elusive. I was kind of surprised to see that, but he does appear to look that way, and we can dig more into those numbers as we go along. But you know, we can start with Omarion Hampton.
Okay.
I think he's God, I hope I'm saying his name right. I feel like I'm not even saying like his full name. Omarion Hampton. I feel like that's right.
Yeah, Omarion Hampton.
And yeah, we can start with him. I think he's definitely going to be, like you said, up around 2, 3. For me, he'll probably fall more into like the 3 range. I really, really like Trevion Henderson, but one way or another, I do want to get another look at Hampton. He was my first profile I did this year, and I always think the first one deserves a look back. A lot of these guys do. One way or another, I'll get into kind of what I thought about him. Just looking at the tape, he was a really powerful runner who exhibits great indirect and direct contact balance, but ironically suffers what I like to call jello legs, and it's often showing like slightly uncoordinated footwork despite his low center of gravity and wide base. And that just may be a little bit of his style of running, trying to always, elude, find extra yards. It may be some of that, but I do find sometimes the footwork just gets kind of jacked up along the way. But better than expected pass catcher. I thought he was really good in that respect. Exceptional burst for the size and power. Would like to see improved vision all around, but especially at the second level. He can be a little indecisive at the line of scrimmage, seek contact instead of open lanes. I think in terms of vision, it really leaves something to be desired. Like where he sees open lanes, or where we see open lanes, Hampton sees voids deprived of contact. Like it just seems like he's kind of always looking for contact instead of evading. And he's pretty skilled from an athletic standpoint. So I feel like, he'd be better at that than kind of what it shows on tape. But he is a home run hitter, big playability on display when he's provided open lanes, and he can break tackles and create yards after contact. So he's a good back for sure. I think when I go back and look, he might get ticked up in the pass catching department a little bit maybe. And I want to go back and I really want to take a look at that vision to make sure that I got that right. He's a little bit lower graded than the average back in this class. And so I just want to make sure that I was seeing what I think I saw. But for the most part, I'm very confident in the evaluation. I think he's a pretty good back. But anything specific that you saw, any numbers you want to kind of hone in on?
Well, I was going to say something. Just you're talking about how you see that when there's an open lane or there's open space, it's devoid of contact, and like he's looking for contact. Well, I actually saw or I saw quotes from him during an interview where he talks about he doesn't want to juke guys.
Okay,
he said that. He said that specifically. He doesn't want to juke guys. He wants like Marshawn Lynch. He wants to run through their face.
Run through a motherfucking face.
So it's not. I don't think it's on accident. It's on purpose. I think he's, he's probably going to have to change that once he's getting hit by bigger linebackers and bigger safeties in the NFL. He might try to avoid contact after his first few games.
Maybe.
But no, I mean, he did say specifically that he goes kind of looking for it. So
that's fair. I mean, he does offer a ton of power. Like I do think that he was graded really highly in the power department, one of the higher grades that you can get for that. But he has good bend, good speed, good yak ability, and pretty good agility too. So I mean, from an athletic standpoint, I think he could develop a little bit more into maybe a more elusive runner. I mean, again, if we go back and look at some of the data, we're looking at, the elusive rating, the missed tackles force. He's still up there pretty high. 25.62% missed tackle force is really, really solid. 125.4 elusive rating. And those are some PFF numbers, really good. 2.3 yards per team attempt. That's really good for a running back, and 1.38 yards per route run is exceptional for a running back. Like not for a wide receiver, but for a running back, that is incredibly good. He's pretty good yards after contact, and the breakaway percentages is pretty solid too. Nothing really to write home about, but still solid. So yeah, I mean, both. I mean, we're gonna get into these guys, but both of them are early declares, so that's good for them. Yeah, man, I don't know, like it. He definitely seems elusive on paper. It seems like he leaves something to be desired on tape with that. But again, one of the higher graded backs here, powerful back, athletic back. So I think the NFL is going to be really, really excited about this kind of player. Yes. Like you said, he's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 backs in this class.
So speaking of the NFL, I know that there's a couple different websites that compile mock drafts. I like to do this when we do our prospect profiles, just to kind of see like where over the course of the year they're assuming this guy will get drafted, and they're pretty accurate. So right now they have mock draft database has him at pick 61. So second round evaluation, second round running back is probably very likely. It hasn't changed much since the beginning of the year either. And I think we failed to mention his size, but yeah, I mean he's like 6 foot 220, like
big boy,
definitely built for it. So.
Big boy. Yeah. And honestly, the speed and quick, sorry, just to say with the size thing, the speed and quickness, it's pretty noticeable, like surprising for that weight, 220.
And so we'll go over Jake's. He's not here, but Jake gave us his little notes about Omarion Hampton here. Try to mention his name as much as I can. That way you guys don't get lost when we're talking about him. But yeah, Omarion Hampton, UNC. Jake says he loves his hands. General, I don't know what RAC is.
after the catch. I assume
I
receiving
guess
after the catch.
receptions after the catch, ability in different short non-screen routes, limited opportunities, yet still made great use of his opportunities. He said the contact balance versus Clemson in 2023, lots of appropriate weight across the legs, general athleticism high to shift weight well. He says he exemplifies high game IQ, uses body shape well when running through the gap. This plus solid burst and bend on runs helps create space in short yardage areas. Strong pass protection and leverage. So improvements. He says general concentration. I put this runs like a giraffe. Like when I watched him, and I'm a big film guy like you, but I just kind of noticed like the football was never really tucked high to his chest. He was kind of just running around kind of like Isaiah Pacheco on a couple Celsiuses or something. Like it just looked, I don't know, it didn't look smooth, and it didn't like have this like Matt Forte like just glide. It wasn't LaShawn McCoy. It was just something else. But that's my knocks. That's not Jake's. That's mine. Jake says his early read, he'll have him in his upper echelon of the first 7 running backs that he's watched, and he hasn't watched Gene yet.
Yeah.
So I think he's penciled him in at RB 3 to 4 or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I haven't watched Genty either. I think it was surprising you saying that you could see either of these guys being better than Genty. I haven't watched him though, and so I haven't put that kind of to the test. But I have a feeling that he's going to be a little more dynamic and sturdy than these guys. Probably going to score a little bit higher, even though Hampton scored very highly in the contact balance department, both direct and indirect. I think that we're going to see Genty score a little bit higher in those regards, and maybe athleticism. We'll see. I'm interested to see his vision too. But Hampton here, go ahead.
NFL in the NFL.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
these two. Yeah, okay.
But there's definitely a possibility. I mean, you're right about that. There's definitely a possibility. I mean, Genty's not the legendary prospect that Barkley once was or something like that. Definitely not like that. But I agree with Jake here, especially about his ability to find his way through creases. He does a really good job of shrinking and bending at the line of scrimmage to find his way through really tight spaces. So I think he does a great job at that. Yeah, I mean, he has great hands, so I agree with him there. I think me and Jake see a lot similar in terms of the Hampton profile. So there's a lot to be excited about. There's also, I think, some where he could improve on, but for the most part, he's a really well-rounded back. I think the vision could be improved a little bit, but again, I'm going to go back and watch that, and I will report back once more. That said, we can move on to Kaleb Johnson, our other running back we're going to be talking about today. I guess we didn't really say where both of these guys are from, but Omarion Hampton is the North Carolina back, and
yes,
Kaleb Johnson is the Iowa State back.
Iowa
back. I get those mixed up all the time, obviously. But anyway, okay, so yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit, how similar these guys are from a data perspective. Yeah. I mean, they almost line up identically, but Kaleb Johnson, a little bit more elusive, 131 to the 125 from Hampton, 27.5% missed tackles force to 25 from Omarion. Hampton, they have the same yards per team attempt, 2.3, a little bit lower on the yards per out run than Hampton, the 1.23, basically the same at yards after contact, and a little bit higher breakaway percentage. But again, they're damn near identical for the most part. And yeah, and for me, with Kaleb, I wasn't as impressed as the community seems to be with him. Still scored pretty well, a few points lower than Hampton. A good size and speed combo, but a little less power than I expected for his general size, or at least appearance of size.
6 foot, but 225.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, like in the short area, goal line, when facing contact, I didn't see as much power as I really expected to with the stature of this player. But he is a high-end processor at the line of scrimmage. I thought he was really quick to recognize defenders and understand which lanes to take or where he needed to go. And he takes that vision to the second level as well with really good anticipation. I think he can see defenders coming out of the peripherals really well, able to kind of make moves to avoid. Doesn't offer a really low center of gravity, but he exhibits good contact balance nonetheless. Quality pass catcher, despite not offering much from a route technique perspective. But you do see him catch passes pretty well. He's really able to bring it in. Hands catcher, not really bringing it in the body or anything like that. Patient runner with really good bursts at the line of scrimmage, but lacks agility and lateral quickness to consistently evade defenders in the open field. And that's a big deal to me. And that may be why I'm a little bit less impressed with him. But he does show good bursts in short spurts, but lacks long speed. Reminds me a bit of a Tank Bigsby with slightly more speed.
Okay.
But he might be a little bit less refined over. I don't know. Maybe that's a really good comp. That's what I wrote. Reminds me of Tank Bigsby with slightly more speed. And I watched him versus some really good opponents like Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa State as well. So got the rivalry in there. So I think we saw him against really good competition. This guy looks good on paper. He looks pretty good on tape. I mean, do you like this? I mean, please give all your thoughts, but also, do you like this player better than Hampton, or are you more of a Hampton guy? Okay.
I do. I've gone through 5 running backs now, like thoroughly enough that I could have some sort of a take. I think that Kaleb Johnson should be RB2 in this class. I think from analytic profile, years out of college, what he was doing compared to some of the other top prospects, I think he's probably one of the best on paper running backs that we have in this class, which is really exciting. Watching him, again, I'm not as refined as you guys, but I like the way he runs the ball a tick more than I saw with Omarion Hampton as well. Just there's something with Hampton I just thought was off. I don't know. But yeah, I do. Analytically, I think that Kaleb Johnson is better than Omarion by a good measure.
Okay.
NFL wise, again, going back to the mock draft database, Kaleb Johnson is mocked at pick 49. So it's not the end all be all, but he's going, about roughly half a round ahead of Omarion.
Wow. Yeah. That's I guess that shouldn't be too surprising to me considering all the buzz he's been getting. And just to touch on it again, I mean, while I do think or would like to see a bit more power given the frame, he does have good bend at and below the knee, which really helps him to evade tacklers. That bend's really important, especially for guys of his size. He does, like I said, lack that acceleration, that stop ability, in my opinion. It's interesting. Jake made maybe it was a note on the sheet here. I think he did about his size. If he were to lose some weight, what that would look like. I almost would like to see it. I think Jake wouldn't like to see it because he thinks it would hinder his game, because it is based, I think, a little bit on power. But I don't see the power as much. So I would like to see him drop a little weight and see what that looks like in terms of speed. Because he's pretty fast from a straightaway perspective, but he's not really lateral and he's not stopping and starting. And so, or quickly at least. And so I would love to see what he looks like at somewhere between 210 and 215, drop somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds and see how he'd move at that weight. It's a lot, but even 5 pounds, I'd like to see what it looks like. And during the season, you often see that. So maybe we get that down the road. I don't know. Maybe he's good at this size because plenty of people like what he's doing here. But Jake's notes real quick: a very strong runner, heavy weight and feet to burst for change of direction in open field, uses lead shoulder frequently. That's absolutely true. Finds his body weight. He finds his body weight helps his general contact balance. Would be interested to see how his weight fluctuates over the next few months. Lighter version of Kaleb would be less appealing. That's what I was alluding to. And so I think maybe we differ a little bit in what that would look like, but we're playing theory games there. So we don't need to harp on that, I guess. But improvements, heavily vertical, shows in his shoulders, closed gait, makes it easier for defenders to read body language. Yeah, I agree with that. He did not get a great gait score from me. I do grade that because I think it's important for these guys to have strong, not just low centers of gravity, but also if you can have a strong wide base, which comes from that gait, which is kind of your foot stance and the way you run. That wider gait, I think, allows you to change direction a lot easier. And so when you have a tighter gait, not only does it, I think, limit what defenders are looking at, and like Jake's saying, like it offers a little more creativity, I think, when you're not as tight, but also when you're that tight, I think it's easier to take you down. And so that's a big thing I look at, and I agree there. Heavily vertical, very, very true. Like I said, straightaway speed's good. Like if he gets an open lane and he's running straight, he's probably going to beat most guys. He might get caught from behind at some point, but he's probably going to beat you for most of the way. And then early read, he has him in the middle of the pack at 4 of 7 running backs, no Genty. So yeah, so I think he's going to have maybe he agrees a little bit more with me, kind of Kaleb right behind Hampton, but it seems like kind of a similar spot that he's going to have Hampton in.
Sounds good. I don't want to do this to Kaleb, but he kind of does remind me of another K Johnson, and that's Kerryon Johnson. and the way I know, but it just does.
No, that's fair. Yeah, like I don't, and it's interesting. Upright. Yes, yes. And it's not my favorite running style. It does work sometimes, but it's interesting. I think this class has a lot of like good players, but I think we could be getting a little ahead of ourselves with how excited we're getting about them. Like the way that some are talking about Hampton and Johnson, but more, I think Kaleb Johnson is like, it's going to be like an every down back, which is possible. Some of these guys absolutely are going to work out that way, but it seems like a lot of people think that about a lot of players in this draft in terms of running backs, and I'm not so sure we're going to get that many hits. So I do want to approach with a little bit more caution, apply a little bit of just a little bit of caution. I don't want to be pessimistic necessarily. I was gonna go there, but I don't want to be as optimistic as everybody's being about these guys. And that also may be part of my grading, is I grade probably a little bit too tough sometimes, and I try to rein that in, but I'm trying to be as critical as possible so I don't like give these guys, am I just giving everybody great grades, which I don't want to do either, so I'm trying to be as critical as possible while also being fair, and I think we're doing that here. And so these grades for me, I'm going to share this sheet soon with the Discord so everybody can get their eyes on what we're doing here. I wanted to get a couple of them going so there could be a list of what you're looking at instead of just a couple guys. But just to put it out there, like we're going out of a score of 100 and 66.5 for Hampton and 59 for Kaleb Johnson. And so this is a new scoring process this year. It's basically an enhanced version of what I was doing before, just a little bit more robust. And I think it's better to have it out of 100, and it makes it make a little bit more sense, I think. And so, 2 of the higher scores, like I said, there's 1 or 2 that are, I think there's 1 that's higher and then 1 in a similar range. And so we'll get to those over the next couple of weeks here, a couple in a similar range. So again, a lot of decent backs, a lot of good backs, but nothing approaching that like 70, 80 mark, which is where you're going to get those kind of elite style backs. I'm assuming Genty's next for me. I assume when I get done with him, he'll be up in, actually I do think I have 170. He'll be up in that 70 range, I'd bet, or 80 maybe, but we'll see. That'd be stretch, I think. Got to be really good to get there. But yeah, these are 2 really interesting guys. I think that we're going to be talking about them a lot this offseason, especially as we see, more projection of where they're going to be going in the NFL draft, and as we see what teams are talking to. So I'm excited about them. I'm excited to get into some of these other running backs, though, as we go forward, and kind of just looking at the pacing of this. I think we're going to easily get through 4 players every time we hop on for some prospect profiles, if not more. But definitely 4 players will get us, I think, where we want to go at a time. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Keep a lookout for the next ones over the next coming weeks. You got anything else you want to say about this?
Yeah, just a couple of things, just real quick. Just for those listening, we're going too fast, the first prospect that we broke down was Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina, and the second prospect that we broke down was Kaleb Johnson, the running back out of Iowa. So
sorry, we got too excited, man. It's prospect profile season.
I know I see that criticism every year so I just want to I kind of want to train ourselves to just say their name more often. And then one other thing just about the running back landscape, this running backs, I mean, we're all excited about it because it does seem to be a little bit better than what we've had in the past, but you don't want to get over your skis, as you say. But I think looking at the NFL free agent pool this year, is not very good. It's not like last year. We had like a lot of good free agents go to certain places, and obviously they all really panned out too. The vets really kind of kicked butt this year. I don't see that this year. I don't see a whole lot of. You have like Najee, which I don't know how excited you get about. I mean, I don't know. It's just I think that we do have a shot where these rookie running backs may get earlier playing time more than the ones that we drafted in the second round, third round of our rookie drafts last year.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. No, yeah, I think that's fair given the landscape, given this class. But I think we're so like thirsty for a new crop of running backs that we could be like you said, getting like over our skis a little bit with how much we like them and how much potential we think they have. Forget about liking them. It's how much potential we actually think they have. And how much like actual upside, like what could they be at their best? And I think we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves there, but maybe I'm being too critical of the community in the hype of prospect season. Maybe everybody's just like us and we're jumping into it so quick we can't even control or contain ourselves. That may be some of it, but that said, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to do what I do best, and that is mitigate and temper expectations, which then allows you to be much more excited down the road when things turn out to be even better than expected. But yeah, I think as an evaluator, like with the evaluations, you want to try to be as like balanced and even as possible. Maybe that's where I'm coming from more than anything. Is I'm not trying to get too high or too low on any of these guys. I'm trying to just be as even keel as possible as I evaluate them to make sure that I'm not, approaching it with some level of bias one way or the other.
Gotcha. And one last thing, I guess, just about both these players, both Kaleb Johnson and Omarion Hampton, looking at quarterback play and offense, like passing yardage and stuff like that. There was none, not really.
Good.
These running backs were, I mean, honestly, they're the best offensive players on their teams. It's what it appears to be. I don't watch them. I was just looking at the numbers, and it looks like, kind of ran through Kaleb and it kind of ran through Omarion. So that is something I think kind of does matter if you want to see some heavy workload in the NFL.
Well, I mean, it's a great point, Uriah. It really is. And going back to the yards per team attempt, which is showing you how many yards they're creating per team, not rush attempt, per team attempt.
Exactly.
2.3 yards per team attempt these guys are producing, which is very good on average. If you're just looking at this class alone, it's towards the top, and it's just a lot. That's a lot for one player to produce for the entire team's attempts. So I think that's a really good descriptive kind of metric that just shows you what they've done, and I think it's a really important one. That's why we have it on there, obviously. So yeah, those are I think we did a good job there. I think we do a good job, by the way, saying the players' names when we talk about players in general on this podcast. But I do appreciate you making sure we said their names, because in prospect profiles we can get a little lost with that. But I think we do a great job of that, saying their names over and over again. It's something that some criticism that I've kept in mind since I think I've started podcasting. It was something that people have said for a long, long time about this community and industry.
We got some people listening on like 2x speed, stuff like that. So it's
All right,
and you
David.
and I typically, we kind of talk fast to begin with, like for the most part. Jake slows it down at least for us, but so I can see
boy
how,
David Kingston out here 2.5 times speed can barely.
Yes,
like
he's just taking in info.
Like, that's honestly impressive. A brain that can take in info at that speed, I'm impressed by. It's more of like a computer than it is a human brain. But you do you. I appreciate the listens, no matter how fast you listen, no matter how fast you want to get through what we're talking about.
Just hurry up.
Come on. And then I love it. It's like, can you please do 2-hour shows, because I listen on 2x speed and I just want more. And I'm like, we do often, so don't worry.
Put us at half speed. It'll be 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. You want more of us? Just put us at half speed. All right. That's all. Oh my God. Good stuff. Yeah.
All right. So one more cool piece of news here before we hop into trades and non-trades, or anything else we have going on. But yeah, coaching changes impacting former teams. So Cohen left Tampa Bay, which I don't know how much that's going to affect Baker. Like, I think he's got it figured out, right? He's had like 17 coordinators. Like, he's going to be fine. Tampa Bay's a good run organization, so I think they'll do him right there. But did you see his his presser for Jaguars? Oh yeah, Cohen left for the Jaguars, by the way. Duval.
Oh no, you did it really good. Oh my god, you did it so good. I can't even do it in that like undulation that he does there with like the.
Oh my god,
Duval,
he did his eyebrows like he's like,
oh my
Duval. Like it's the other way around, but
everybody needs to watch the YouTube episode for this. Holy shit. Absolutely the widest way that he ever could say Duval, by the way. There's no wider way to say Duval.
I sent that to my buddy, Jags buddy, who grew up in Duval County there in Florida. I was like, oh man, sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I think Coach Speak had it 0-17 was the post for that. That was pretty good. I mean, that aside, like we've seen some quirky guys do enough, and we've seen quirky guys fail too. I mean, Mike McDonald's not having the best run at it in Miami from a success perspective overall, and so you get the Dan Campbell press conference. That's not quirky necessarily, but just outrageous, and he does pretty well. So I mean, I don't think it matters.
Everyone wrote him off.
Yeah, exactly, and so I don't think it matters so much in terms of like that. And I'm not so like worried, the Jaguars, that's it for them because Liam Cohen is a doofus. Like, nah, I'm not really worried about that. I think that getting a forward-thinking young offensive coordinator is not a bad thing. Trying, to do what everybody's doing around the league. I know a show that calls all those guys like Sean McVay and all them tight pants guys because they often seem to wear tight pants, and so I think the tight pants guys, I'll take that. Yeah, exactly. I'll take that from the Patriots Unfiltered podcast. Shout out. But I think the tight pants guys are all the rage, and I think he's kind of maybe one of those guys. Though I feel like I've seen him and his pants are very loose, so maybe he doesn't quite fit that. It's just very baggy. But
he looks more like a Harbaugh than anything. But
yeah, there you go. That would be good for Trevor Lawrence and co if that is what he ends up being. But so I mean, I think it's lukewarm like excitement for Jaguars and for Trevor Lawrence. I don't know exactly how it's going to work out because going back to what you said, I'm not sure if the coordinators are making Baker or if Baker's making the coordinators. Granted, Canales, I think, was the one that gets a lot of credit for working with him. Look. Decent this year, down the stretch in getting Bryce Young right. Didn't look great initially, but I think we do have to give Baker quite a bit of credit for working with multiple different offensive coordinators over a long period of time and performing pretty well for the most part, especially over the last couple of years. So I'm not really worried about the loss, for Tampa Bay so much. I think they're probably, if they could keep Chris Godwin around, it would help a lot in terms of continuity perspective, keeping that core together and being able to do kind of some of the same things they do and transition that to whoever the offensive coordinator is and work from there. But either way, I think they have enough there to work with for him to keep the success going. So I'm not as worried as I would be with some of these other losses, even though last week when we talked about what's his name, Brian Johnson transitioning out of Ben Johnson. Detroit, or Ben Johnson, Ben Johnson transitioning out of Detroit. I'm not that worried about that team, but it goes back to them having the continuity and all those players coming back. I think it's going to be easier to keep that scheme together. And that's kind of what I'm alluding to here is like, I think for the most part, it'll be relatively easy to keep the scheme together. And so I think I view it similarly. How about you? You have any thoughts on Cohen leaving other than his press conference?
No, I think, like I said, I think Baker's going to be just fine. Keep most of those players together, should work out okay. I'm a little more concerned with the Detroit one, as you had mentioned, just because they pretty much all their coaches got poached. But we'll see how that works out. I have faith in the head coach. But I'm not worried about Tampa Bay, and I'm a little excited about Trevor Lawrence. So we'll see how that goes. Let's talk some trades and non-trades. Ooh, this one's fun. Jonathan Brooks for the 411.
For who? For me, or the manager who got Brooks? Who? This was Uriah's trade from one of our DU leagues. I think DU4 maybe, or no, DU3 maybe. I don't remember. DU2?
2, I think.
2. Yeah, 2.
Yeah.
So he moved this was, I think, one of the ones that you put on the block, right? Where we were talking about putting the market price board
Change
where
all the
you're just
nicknames.
putting out
Yeah.
exactly a specific price for a player that you're willing to take. And Uriah put Jonathan Brooks out there for a 4th round pick, which I didn't see. I would have jumped all over. I'd probably sent you a 3rd round pick just to get it done immediately and be ahead of the pack. But Josh got in there, and I think it was Josh, and sent over the 411 for Jonathan Brooks. Jake, of course. Who else would it be that's scouring this shit more than me? Jake got in there and traded a 4th round pick for Jonathan Brooks. And I just want to get your thoughts on this, because I do think it was a head scratcher for me. I think that you probably could have gotten 2/3 if you really wanted to. So like, where are you at with this? You really just don't believe in Brooks anymore? Like, I'll start there. You don't believe in Brooks anymore?
One, I don't really believe in Brooks anymore. Okay. It was a long day. Wasn't fully. But so, I go down and I sit down, I'm like,
couple beers were drank. Got it.
Yeah. So I'm going to go through my phone. I'm like, well, in this league, I'm just looking for picks. I'm like, well, let's just do the thing where I kind of put a price through, and I was going through. Mm-hmm. And at that time, like, I had already maybe I had gone through like the Jonathan Brooks rabbit hole that day. And I was just like, this guy's fucked. Like, he's not but what? So I'm like, who cares, right? Like, I'll just take a 4th for him, because I don't see him ever actually being good. But what I didn't really take into consideration, the 2 things that you mentioned tonight, like, hey, check with somebody before you make a trade. But I felt obligated in a way, because I put the price tag of 4. So I made the list. Said, hey, he's worth the 4.
Yeah.
And it was less than 10 minutes later, I got the offer, and I was just like, oh, there's 4 there. Cool, let's go. Not a big deal. And then I get roasted. I'm like, I didn't know he had such high value still. I don't know why. Do you think he's going to come back and be?
I think he has enough pedigree to come back. I don't believe either way. Let me be perfectly clear. I don't know if he's going to come back. I don't think he's going to come back. I don't think he's not going to come back. I don't know either way, but I know for sure that his market price has got to be higher than that. And so I would just be playing the market. If I didn't believe in him, I would be just playing the market in that way. And I would definitely have gone to maybe keep trade cut or something if I wasn't sure about his value, and done that. And then I would have reached out to myself, Jake, the Discord, whatever, and been like, yo, am I thinking about this right? 4th for whatever. And because I think his value is probably closer to 2/3, I think it could be even closer to a 26-second or something like that.
Sure.
With the right manager. But then you're getting into obviously playing, it's just more effort in that, of course. But what you said is a very real thing. You put a specific price on the board, and you had to honor that price. I actually got stuck with that in one of the trades that we're going to talk about today. I'll just talk about it real quick since we're doing this. I put James Conner on the market price board, as we're calling it, for any second. And then I got sent the 211, and I was like, I don't want to take that second. I want a mid-second. I want a mid or early second, but I had already put him on for a second. And and it's funny because Josh was the one who sent it to me. And I said to Josh, he was like, he sent me the offer. I didn't respond for a bit. And then he was like, that was the price you asked for, right? And I was like, yeah, but I think I should have. I said, yeah, but I think I should have said a mid-second. He goes, well, honor your price. And he's like, I'll throw a 4th on it for you or whatever. And I was like, that's generous, because I do think that he's worth more than a 211, but I got to honor my price. And so whatever he sent me, I got to just take. And so I took it. So I do think that is a respectable move that you made. You had to honor your price, and you just did it. And I think you probably realized pretty quickly that, oh, wait, there was probably more value here I could have extracted, but this is where I'm at.
He never should have ended up on my
market price board.
I shouldn't have even he shouldn't have even been on the list, right? But yes. I was just going through hey, this is cool. I mean, it took me
I saw him on there for 2 times thirds, I probably wouldn't have said a single thing. But when I looked at it, I was like, a 4th. I was like, Uriah, why? and honestly, at the end of the day, he could not be anything. He has a very significant injury right after the other one. He has, a good back in front of him. There's a long runway to get back to just even. So I do understand wanting to get off of him. Not gonna, I totally understand that. But I just think that there was a better way to do it. And this goes back to my PSA, which actually wasn't the reason why I put it on here, but it's great that it kind of applies anyway. But check yourself before you wreck yourself. Go check with people. Every trade, every thought you have on, like, I would say any non-insignificant player. And I think Jonathan Brooks being a rookie pick just last year, a second round pick in the NFL draft, is a non-significant, or is not a non-significant player. Like, if we're talking about like Amir Abdullah's and like those kind of players, like, I don't care what, make a mistake, go for it. You know what I mean? Like, your mistakes are going to be, so the margin of error is not going to be enough to care. But the margin of error here, I think, is a little bit greater. So I'm not trying to harp on this or pan you or whatever, because I appreciate that all of us are willing to come on here and talk about anything that may be a mistake even. But I just think it's a good example. No, I just think it's a good example, like, of stuff that happens. And honestly, it's a great example, just like mine, of the market price board. Be super careful. The price you put on there, you have to honor, or you're going to look like a dick. And that's how people are going to view you going forward. So be careful what you put your price for, because that is the price you are going to be paying or accepting. Otherwise, you're going to have, a scarlet letter on your chest for all time going forward.
Shout out Jake. He did give me an option to back out, but
he's a good man. He's a good man. And honestly, I think that's a good move too on any of these deals. I think if you sense any indication that there may have been a mistake, or there's whatever, anything, it is, I think, a respectful thing to do, to go to that manager and be like, hey, is this something you really wanted to do? Like, and just give them the opportunity. Most of the time, like Uriah, he's going to honor his whatever he did, and he's going to just move forward with it, which there's a couple things. There was another one you did where I think you made a trade, and this isn't even that the player ended up being decent, but like Khalil Shakur, I think, for a fourth, and you didn't mean to make that trade. You thought you were getting Khalil Shakur, and you just ate it. And honestly, again, that goes to the credit, that's credit the type of person that Uriah is and the type of league mates you want around. Honestly, like, a lot of respect for those things. Because honestly, with that one, I probably would have been like, yo, can we maybe take it back? But I would have felt like shit about it. And so I think in the end, you did the right thing. It's just,
it's okay.
It's just, it's tough. It's a game.
I don't think that either of those things are gonna make or break me having a championship. So still,
I agree with that.
Rookie moves, but I'm okay with it. Let's move on though. Recently I traded with Josh. He went to Jalen Polk, and I was kind of like, I think this is also in DU2. So this is just one of those leagues where I was thinking, I think after week 3, I said, hey, let's go. Ended up at the 101. And I'm pretty much out on Polk. I didn't think I'd get anything for him. I said, I know I drafted in the second round. So I said, hey, let me get a third. He doesn't have a third. So he sent Polk for my Polk and 27 for his 27 second. I'm not going to be competing probably until 26, 27 in the first place. So getting a second this early for a couple years down seems like a smart move.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like the 27 side, or I'm sorry, the 27 second side quite a bit. I do not believe in Jalen Polk. That rookie season is going to be extremely hard to come back from. Plus, just I think he's kind of duplicative in the skill set he has. With, like, he's not the same. He's a little bit bigger, obviously, but like, he needs to be more in the Demario Douglas role, like in that area of the field, and it's not going to work out, I don't think, long term. So I like that 27 second a lot. I do not mind giving up the fourth along with him to get there.
All right, next one is 106-206. 106-206 for Josh Downs in the 112.
Yeah, this was my trade. So if you want to go ahead and let me know how you feel about it, I'll let you know my thoughts, reasoning behind it.
I value Downs higher than the 206. I will take Downs in the 112. Just the uncertainty of what's going to be that 206. Obviously, the earlier pick at 106, like, I can name a handful of guys that I'd be thrilled to draft at 106, but I also think there's going to be something there for you at 112, and you're getting a player that was coming into his third year. If Anthony Richardson works out with his new quarterback coach and all that, I think there's a chance that Downs could be a good vet player moving forward. There's just been so many flashes of a really good player. His profile coming out of college is really good. I think I would just take whatever Downs is going to be and has been over what 206 could be, and the difference between 106 and 112 kind of makes up that gap.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment for sure of this trade. I got the 2 picks, the early pick 106 and 206, and so my kind of thought process was a little bit different, obviously, in terms of how I broke it down in my head. I mean, I agreed Downs over the 206, but I think the value gap between 106 and 112 is greater than the value gap between Downs and the 206, and it kind of makes up for it for me. That's at least in my head how I feel about it. And I don't know if I even have an intention of drafting what's at the 106. I kind of am going to be shopping it around, especially as we get towards the actual NFL draft and the rookie drafts where the picks become more valuable. I think I'm going to be a lot more pleased with the return I can potentially get with the 106 and the 112. And I'm okay with, taking that risk on the 206 that I get something similar maybe to Downs, or I can trade it for something similar to Downs, not necessarily making the pick there either. We'll see how that goes exactly. I did give up a lot of capital in this league to get to the final. This was DU4. And so I felt like I did feel like this was a good way to kind of recoup some of the pick value that I lost while not giving up a ton of production on my roster. I do like Downs. I agree with you. I think he's shown a lot of flashes. I think he's in a less than ideal situation, however. And so I'm a little, I'm kind of hedging my bet on Downs. I have quite a few shares of him. And so it wasn't like, oh, I have a lot of shares, let me get rid of him. It was just like, this guy might just be middle of the pack production wise. We know he's a really good player, but production wise, because of, the team that he's playing with, the quarterback he's playing with, those kind of things, which isn't really the best way to do it. I do think that if these players are good, often they overcome the situation. But I think there's enough risk in his profile to kind of to make this move for me. And so that's why I did it. I think, again, your assessment of it is really fair. So and obviously that's why I got done. I do think that there's some credence to the other side. I just think jumping up to the 106 while adding the 206 is not much of a downgrade, if a downgrade at all. So that's how I thought about it. And just real quick, I want to mention the Connor trade. It was actually Connor for 210 and a 26 fourth is what I was talking about before, where I had the player on the market price board and I had to honor that trade. I just want to say that happened to be a cascading trade very quickly after this. We've talked about that a lot. I think it's worth mentioning. When one trade happens, there's often a deal to be made soon thereafter. It doesn't always happen, but I think if you explore, and often people reach out to you, that's how, it often occurs for me. But I think if you explore, if nobody's reaching out to you, you'll find that other people maybe get juiced by the trade that just happened, and you can make similar deals or deals in a similar direction because people are understanding that, this deal is putting maybe your mindset in a certain trajectory. And I think that's what happened here, where they're like, oh, you're looking for picks, and obviously you put this guy on the block and you just got this deal done. Maybe you'll take this second round pick and whatever. And I was like, and to me, it kind of made sense too, because I had also taken on Christian McCaffrey. I have a bunch of old backs, Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, right? And I'm like, do I really want another one like James Conner too? I'm like, okay, I could flip this right now as he approaches the 30 age mark and maybe get out, a year early rather than a year too late kind of thing, while also mitigating the age on my roster, or the age of my overall roster. So that was kind of the thought process through those and how those cascading trades happen. But again, Josh may have kind of, found a target that I had on my back based on, the market price board is a little bit low for this guy. I can send this lower pick, and he just got this deal done. He's probably heading in that direction anyway. Boom. So I think it was a smart move by him. And I think that, it made sense for my team build, but I may have taken a little bit less on that one than I needed or should have because of my approach. So that's the last thing I wanted to say on that. We got one more trade.
We have Burrow for Herbert, Carr, and at 27 first. The person getting Burrow, or no? Here we go.
No.
Jake says already on 26. Okay, so yeah. What does he mean by that?
He's saying the person getting Herbert in this deal already owns the 26th first of the owner that they're trading with. So the Burrow side
Gotcha.
has already given up their 26th first to the other side in a past deal, and now they're giving up their 27th first to the same owner. So now the person getting the Herbert side technically has the Burrow owners 26 and 27 first.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, basically, yeah, Herbert, Carr, and 27 first for Burrow. This looks like other deals I've seen get done. I think I did one similar to this a couple years back, where the thought of the value between Burrow and Herbert, or I guess the production between Burrow and Herbert wasn't like all that crazy apart, but it seemed like the dynasty value was always in favor of Burrow. So it seemed like it was a good place where you could always just like, hey, fantasy points wise, it's not that big of a step down, but if there's going to be a first and value gap between Herbert and Burrow, just let me get off of Burrow. I'll take Herbert in your first and move on. And he looks like he got a free car in the deal, which I don't know what his
Toyota like, or Lexus, like what kind?
Fiat. It's like a Fiat.
Broken down Hyundai.
It's like my 2006 Kia Spectra. No, I mean this is a smart move. This is kind of what you should be trying to do. Tier down, grab a first. Like this is kind of the deal. Like I don't see that Burrow to Herbert is a huge tier down as far as fantasy points go. Maybe I'm off there, but it doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. And just to grab a future first is pretty good. And obviously, Jake's stacking first, so I do like the Herbert side here.
Yeah, I definitely hear that. I'm just looking real quick. I wanted to see kind of points per. I mean, this year the points per game were not similar at all.
No,
like, I mean, Herbert had a little bit of a down year from points per game, but obviously the offense is going to impact that. And Joe Burrow had an exceptional year. So that's going to impact things a little bit. But trying to see one more thing. Yeah, like Burrow is pretty consistently above that 20-point mark, and Herbert is more around that like 17, 18 in terms of points per game. So I do think you take a pretty significant hit from that perspective. But I think the idea is partially that he continues to develop and get better with this offense, and they continue to use his arm a little bit more. But also the 27 first is a pretty significant plus. You get Carr, which I think you're going to be able to get out of at some point for, a relatively significant pick. And then I think what also goes into this maybe is, and Jake's not here to kind of say this, and I don't know what the other person's roster who's getting Burrow is feeling. I'd assume they're in some sort of contending window.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the idea is by 26, 27, those picks are relatively early compared to what they may feel like now. And so not only are you getting Herbert here plus, but you're also, which is not a significant downgrade, though a downgrade, I would say, from Burrow. You're also maybe, playing into their team might not be as good in the future, and you own both their first and can now trade back. Like if they need their pick back, you can kind of, you have a lot of leverage on them is my point, And so I think that could be playing into this a little bit. Cause I like initially when I saw this, I said, it kind of feels like Burrow side to me still, but I think that's a great return for Burrow. Also, that's how I felt about it. So I think it's a good trade. I kind of lean on the Herbert plus the first side because I think it's more liquid value. Plus you have a really good quarterback that is always going to be hot on the market. The community loves him right now. So, I in the end, I would say the Herbert side is where I would fall, but I really think that this isn't that bad of a price for Joe Burrow. And if you have a really competitive roster and you feel good about it, like I wouldn't hate giving that up to increase my points per game and take a line from John Hogue in the Superflex Super Show, get one of those infinity stones. I think Herbert is more of one of those infinity stones, something that, is an elite producer more than a guy like Herbert is, though he has the potential to get there. And so, yeah, that's my evaluation of it.
Fair. Anything else you want to discuss?
No, not on the show sheet. I think we covered everything. I'm excited about the prospect profiles. We'll continue to hone those in a little bit. But I do like the kind of free flowing style that we had today. A little bit different from last year, but I dig it. We'll definitely add at least two more prospects. We'll do 4 each episode. So keep a lookout for that. If you guys have any preferred ones you would want to hear as we continue going, thank you, Josh. Thank you. As we continue to go along, let us know, and we'll try to cater to that. And if you want to do that, hop in the Discord. That is where you will be able to get a hold of us. So find your way into the Discord, and that is all I got to say. Thanks, everybody, for joining this week, and I will catch you next time.
You have a good night.
Peace out.